Hello and welcome to PerchPeek Pods, the only place to get long-form interviews with some of the world's leading global mobility experts. And we have a true expert today in Krista Caldwell, global mobility and immigration lead at PagerDuty, who are crushing it right now. So a very interesting time to be there. I'm very much looking forward to that. But even outside of the mobility world, you're truly fascinating person. So very excited to have you on the show today. We've got a very weird and wonderful eclectic mix of topics to get into today, so it should be a good show. Before we dive in though, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you fell into the wonderful world of mobility.
Yes, awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here, and as you said, share something that's a little bit outside of the norm for mobility. So happy to be here. I've been in mobility for over 13 years, and it's funny because most people happen to get into mobility from kind of a random circumstance, but my degree is actually human resources and international business. So It was mobility before mobility was a thing. So
that's cool.
I'm destined to be on from the start, just I know what it was at the time. But I've been in the engineering world, I've been in the public accounting world, and then now in the tech world. And so a lot of different experiences that contributed to where I'm at now.
That's crazy. Yeah, as you say, that is a rare sort of degree relevant sort of way into mobility. So take us back to the start then. I said we'd go off script, and right from the start we're going to go for it. But so you did HR and international business, that you were studying that, and now you're global mobility and immigration leader. Okay, those two make sense. What was the actual starting point then? What was your sort of first role in the international HR space?
Yeah, so I worked for, I didn't work in HR for the first couple of years after graduating. Nice. And then I started working for a large engineering company. And right away when I started working for them, it was to assist their HR professional and their lead mobility person with mobilizing people to go on a project to Iraq. And so I kind of jumped right into it, worked on mobilizing people, and became exposed to mobility right there in that particular project assignment. And that kind of evolved into me actually taking an assignment to go on that project where I previously mobilized people to. And I took an assignment in 2006, 2007. So during like very intense times in Iraq, I was there for about 7 months doing a rotational assignment. So it was like right in getting that firsthand experience of being an expat in a very challenging location with a very unique circumstances.
Wow, that's crazy. Just tell us about, I feel like people have been on a lot of assignments from the show. I think that's the first time I've had someone who's been to Iraq for an assignment. What was your experience like there?
You know, it was really unique. I was young at the time, and so I think it was a little bit naive, which I think to a degree served me well because I didn't have certain expectations about what it was going to be or how it was going to go. We had the good fortune of being in a safe place. We were in Basra. We were on the British Air Force Base. I pretty much stayed on base the whole time, but it was such a great experience to really dive into the mobility world, very hands-on, working around the clock with, people coming and going, dealing with so many situations. And what I love about that project was the relationships that I built with so many people from all around the world. I mean, we had people from everywhere. And, when you're there, you're working 12 hours a day, 7 days a week for a period. And so you really become close with a lot of these people. They become like your family. And so I am still to this day very close with several of the people from that project. And so it's just such a unique experience that I think had really set the stage for me to get into mobility and to really realize these unique experiences that we're giving people and how we can best support them through whatever journey it is and whatever unique circumstances.
Yeah. Wow. What a sort of a first assignment early in your career. That is truly epic. Let's fast forward then. So you, I feel a lot of people in mobility, it's quite a stressful role. I mean, you were on assignment in Iraq. I imagine that had its ups and downs, and people often say it's the third most stressful experience after death and divorce. I think relocating, if I've got that right. And when you're in the industry, that just means you're surrounded by people who can be quite stressed at time of day. It's obviously wonderful, but it can be hard as an industry to switch off because you constantly feel like there's more you can do to help the end relocator, and B, from a time zones perspective, it's like you help people all around the world, so it's a bit of a nightmare in terms of switching off. I know this is a topic close to your heart, so tell us a little bit about how you think about mindfulness and global
Yeah, so I
mobility?
think, what I've seen over the last several years is there's been a big shift, not just within mobility, but within the working world as a whole,
Mm.
around a lot more around employee well-being and wellness of our staff and making sure that we're taking care of our people. And so I think there's been kind of this recognition that we need to do more. We need to take care of each other. We need to take care of ourselves. And so one thing I've done, I've become a yoga teacher. And so part of that is kind of tying in the yoga theme and the mindfulness. And so I think as mobility professionals, we are constantly pulled in different directions. And like you said, we're working around the clock, different time zones. This isn't a typical 9 to 5 kind of job where you start at a certain time and you finish at a certain time,
Yeah.
because you really are dealing with people all over the world. And so, the mindfulness piece that I've been talking a lot about lately is how are we taking time for ourselves to find the balance between being able to deliver what we need to deliver, but also taking care of ourselves. And I think so much of that centers around being intentional about taking the time. And I think sometimes there's this misconception that you have to have hours and, all these activities that you do that create this mindfulness. But sometimes it's something that can be very simple. And even if it's creating space between meetings during the day and stepping away or taking a 5-minute walk, there's so many things that we can do to take our brain away from what we're doing, just to be able to give us that break.
Yeah, and so tell us you've mentioned a few different activities there. Which is your favorite? Your regular working day, your sort of beavering away. What's your go-to move for a bit of mindfulness and mobility?
For me, I think, during the workday, it's nice just to step away, listen to some music. I try
Nice.
to step away when I eat my lunch, because I know sometimes I have a habit of eating while we're on a meeting or sitting here and just not getting up throughout the day. So stepping away now that it's summer, the weather's nice. So even just stepping out for a quick walk around the block, I think for me gives me that reset, because you can tell I work in a dark room. And so it's nice just to get a little bit of that fresh air and put on a podcast, put on some music, and just almost check your brain out for a few minutes. So that's something that has helped me find that balance.
I love that. So if you're sneakily listening to this podcast during the working day, get out there for a walk and reset. And tell us a little bit about mobility more specifically. Then, what do you think are some of the challenges for people in the mobility industry when it comes to sort of having a healthy work-life balance?
Yeah, I think, so much of it is the fact that a lot of mobility teams are under-resourced. And when you say mobility team, a lot of times it's not a team, it's a person. Yeah. I've been in that position. I'm in that position now. And so there's a lot of pressure on one person to deliver a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And so I think that that's a very common theme, just the under-resourcing of mobility teams, and the pace at which mobility moves is very fast. And so it's one of this need to be able to multitask. But I think sometimes what happens is we get too caught up in multitasking and we're not putting the right level of attention on the different things that we're trying to accomplish. And so the mindfulness tie is taking that step back, and how can we create focus and intention with the specific things that we're dealing with, and not constantly be distracted by everything that's coming our way. And I think it really takes a diligent practice to learn how to do that. And I noticed, one of the things we talk about at PagerDuty is filling your jar with the big rocks first, and then the small rocks in this stand. I think, I'm the kind of person that grabs the stand and grabs the small rocks first, because it's easy and I can get it done, and I want to be responsive and I want to be quick. But then I realize at the end of the day or the week or whatever the time is, I haven't made time for the big rocks and I haven't accomplished the larger things that I wanted to do. And so I consciously have to reshuffle my priorities, take the pressure off of myself to be super responsive on some of the smaller things, so I can really put the focus on some of the bigger tasks.
Yeah. No, I'm going to put you directly on the spot here, because big rocks through fan of that philosophy. Eisenhower's prioritization matrix. Don't just do the urgent, not important work. The interruptions you've got to challenge through. I can almost hear some mobility folks saying, but the challenge is so many of the interruptions in the mobility world are either people saying within stakeholders within the business saying, hey, what's going on with the visa for so-and-so, or hey, how does this work? And there's sort of that expectation that you get back to them quickly, or you're helping an actual relocator, and often things are pretty time-bound, right? If you don't get back to them quickly. So often we hear people say, I haven't got to the RFP, or I haven't got to the policy revamp, the sort of traditional bigger rocks in our space, because they're getting bombarded on both sides of the fence. So how do you try and tactically get away from some of those like interruptions that just feel so important?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's really important to set expectations on what your, expected response time is to certain things, because, when we get in the habit of responding very quickly, people then expect us to respond very quickly. And so sometimes there's a readjustment needed of, the expectation of the turnaround time of when you'll get back to people. And, as a mobility professional, you have to almost assess the priority of different things that'll come in, because some things will be urgent and you will have to drop everything to handle those, and other things won't be as urgent, but they may be easy to do. But again, that's where you have to have that personal boundary of, yes, I know this is easy, something I can do quickly, but I will still put it to the side and maybe set aside a half an hour during the day where you respond to some of those like quick, easy things, so that you're still being responsive, but it's not constantly distracting you throughout the day. And I know that, there's challenges when we have Teams and we have Slack and we have email. It's kind of bombarding us from all different directions. And so sometimes there is that need to silence the notifications, turn off the notifications, turn off the calendar reminders, and set that focus block of time, phone on do not disturb, all the things that come away, with the recognition that, like, if it is life and death, someone will call and will get to us. But some, like, the things we deal with are not life and death in that moment. And so it's really just like creating those boundaries for yourself of turning off what is keeping you from delivering what you need to deliver.
100%. And I think I think what we often hear is a lot of teams have ticketing systems for more internal requests, whether that be Jira or ServiceNow or have some other form of system. Really highly recommend do get that set up. But then people will still email, Slack, Teams you. But then it is having the discipline sometimes as well to say, hey, no, there is a formal process to do this. Please, can you go through there for X, Y, Z? And I think don't be afraid to sort of push back. And even if you help once, say next time or whatever, because otherwise, as you say, people are just going to always expect it, and it's going to be impossible to break free from that. I know you did a session at FEM recently on mindfulness. It was in the mobility space. What was the feedback from people in attendance? I'm really curious.
Well, yeah, actually, I've gotten a lot of really positive feedback, which has been really nice, because it was a topic we weren't sure how it would land with the audience when we were, putting it together. And I think, a lot of people said it was kind of a breath of fresh air to talk about something different, because obviously we're there to learn. We're there to talk about the technical and all the, intricate details of mobility and technology and disruptors and all of the things that are very important. But again, it's, all these different things that are coming at us. And so it was that chance to give everyone a little bit of a reset and a reframe around, looking at what it is that you can do for yourself, so that when you approach all of these different things that we're talking about, you're approaching them from a little bit more intentional, mindful position, and one of the things that I talked about toward the end of the presentation is, we talk about obstacles and we talk about all these things that we're doing, and we go in mobility. And when we talk about yoga and mindfulness, we talk about things in a 4-part cycle. So there's a beginning, a middle, an end, and a pause. And I told everyone the biggest thing that all of us are missing is the pause, because it's beginning, middle, end, go, just constantly that drive to get things finished. And we're not taking the pause. And this doesn't have to be a significant, timely kind of exercise. But if you look at your day and your calendar, you're going from one thing to the next. Are you even giving yourself a pause to catch your breath and to switch your mind off from the first topic so you can approach the next topic? And so I think encouraging people to do that and just take that moment to reset, so they can show up in the way that they want to show up for each of the tasks that they're handling. I think people, that resonated with people. I also did a breathing exercise at the beginning of the session.
Oh, yeah.
Like close their eyes, get centered, which that got a good feedback as well, because a lot of people don't realize how infrequently we pay attention to our breath and bring our level of stress down. And just by breathing consciously for 2 to 3 minutes, that can reduce people's stress levels and just give you that chance to reset, so that when you're ready to go, that you're just in a more pleasant, frame of mind.
I love that. This is completely off topic now, but I've actually coincidentally just started reading a book called Breath by James Nestor, which I'm not sure if you've read, The New Science of Lost Art, but it's basically just all about breathing. And I must admit, I've done yoga a few times. I'm horrible at it. I'm possibly the least flexible person ever. But my friend sent me this book, and it's just all about different breathing techniques and stuff like that. Really enjoying it, and it's so interesting. As you say, you don't think about it, you don't think about breathing, but it is amazing just to take that pause center. So
yeah, exactly.
And you mentioned there sort of you speaking at FEM. You've been very deliberate, I feel, over the last year, 18 months about doing more speaking engagement, being more visible on LinkedIn and in other places. Tell us a little bit about building your sort of personal brand. What drove you to think now's the right time to go about doing it? What were the first steps? How's it gone? Has it been fun? Do you enjoy it? Tell us everything about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a great question. And those who knew me 10 years ago, this is a completely different side of me than was how I was in the past. I was very, very shy growing up, extremely introverted, shied away from the spotlight at every chance. And so where I am now, being a little bit more in the spotlight and more visible and speaking, is never where I expected my journey to take me. Yeah. And I think, the biggest catalyst for change for me was having a manager who helped me find opportunities to get outside of my comfort zone. And one thing that we talk about is like, oh, someone pushed me out of my comfort zone. And I like to reframe it as no one pushed me out. They grabbed my hand and they walked me outside of my comfort zone. And so I think giving people the support to carry them into a place that's uncomfortable for them, knowing that you're there to support them, to encourage them, to cheer them on, I think is where you get the most value, because then it gives people that confidence to try something new and then to assess how it went. And so for me, that the first thing was speaking on webinars where it was a virtual, a little bit less intimidating setting, and then being part of a panel at FEM in San Diego, probably 6 or 7 years ago. And I look back at the time, and it was so nerve-wracking for me to be there on the panel, on the stage, and so but it was kind of that like, next step to push myself a little bit more and to challenge myself. And so, after that, different opportunities started to come up, and I was more likely to raise my hand and volunteer for things. Whereas prior to that, I never would have volunteered. And so I think it just kind of started on that path. And then new opportunities have been created by being involved in different networks and just connecting with the industry. I'm now on the Rocky Mountain Relocation Council Board of Directors, which I was on for a few years, took a break, and now I'm back. And so opportunities have just kind of started to come up. And for me, it's sometimes the natural inclination is to say no. And so I'm challenging myself to say yes, and to get out there and just be more visible and share what I know, because I've learned so much from others who've done the same thing.
I love that. A million things to dive into. So I think sometimes when people sort of are thinking about this space, it can A, have a bit of a negative stigma around it, but B, I think it can be uncertain as to like almost what they're trying to achieve by speaking on webinars, being a bit more vocal, meeting new people, etc. When your manager was first encouraging you to, or walking you out of the comfort zone, as you so eloquently put, why were they encouraging you to do that? What benefits were they hoping for you to get?
I think for me, more confidence and more ability to be a little bit more assertive, even in my internal job, and being able to connect more with stakeholders and just be confident in what I knew. And I think for a long time, I think a lot of people deal with that like imposter syndrome or phenomenon where so many more people know some more things than I know. And so it's almost helpful sometimes to have someone to tell you, you do know a lot. You are an expert. People do want to hear what you have to say, and then creating an opportunity for you to be able to say what you want to say or what you know. And so I still think there's so many people in the industry who know vastly larger amounts of information than I know. And so instead of focusing on that, what I know might be different. What I do is different, but it doesn't mean it's any sharing. And so I think we kind of have to get into that mindset, like so knows more than me. And like, yeah, they may know more than she in this area, but not in this other area. And so I think we all have something to bring to the table. And I think the more we have these opportunities to talk to each other, whether it's in a formal or an informal setting, I think we realize like how unique everyone's skill set is.
100%. It takes me back to when I was chatting with Mott from ERM, she was saying she's been in the industry for 37 years, would you believe? And she is still just as passionate a networker as ever, still learning new things, and is such a passionate advocate for, you can learn something from everyone, and everyone has slightly different challenges. And as you touched on the mindfulness point, often in mobility, you are a team of one or two, so or small teams. So it's like there's so much to learn. Which is amazing. I wanted to go on to the Rocky Mountain Relocation Council. So this is something for those of you listening outside of the US. There's lots of these regional relocation councils in the US. Give us a sort of a flavor of how you got involved initially, and I guess like ultimately whether it's been worth it. How what like specifically the relocation councils, why not just keep going to FEM and chatting or worldwide? Like why dive into some of the local ones?
Yeah, so I lived in Houston for a long time, and I moved to Colorado 6 years ago. And just prior to moving, I went to a local Houston event with with a relocation group there, and I met someone who was actually based out of Colorado and part of the Rocky Mountain group. And they said, "Oh, when you move, let's meet. I'll introduce you to some people." Because when I moved for personal reasons. So I didn't know anyone professionally. My company did not have an office, so there was nobody else working here. So I was very alone in that regard. And so it was my opportunity to begin to build relationships professionally in Colorado. And so I immediately jumped in and I met so many people right away. And then within the first few months, they were doing board elections. And so everyone was encouraging me. They said, we want more corporate people on our board. We would love to have you. It's a great way to meet people. And again, I was like, I don't know. I don't think I want to.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm just going to go for it. And I did. And it was amazing how many opportunities I got to be involved in things that I would have probably otherwise not been as deeply involved in. I wouldn't have met as many people. And it really just solidified my decision to move to Colorado because I was building this network very quickly that probably wouldn't have happened had I not done that. And so it was really great. And then, then of course the pandemic hit. And so the dynamic of the board changed and of the events we were trying to do, it changed and shifted. And I was on the board for 3 years, and then I decided to take a break. And that was largely driven by the fact that I was changing jobs at the time, and my capacity to contribute to the board wasn't quite as significant. So took a break, and of course still tried to attend events, but wasn't involved with the planning and execution. And then more recently, I've been trying just to get involved a little bit more with social impact initiatives. So our company is very big on social impact and volunteering. And so I went to a volunteer event for the Rocky Mountain group recently, and they said they had some openings on the board. And I decided now is the right time. Now I'm feeling more settled with where I'm at with my role. And I have time and capacity to give back in a way that I wasn't able to over the last couple of years. And so for me, it's been great. It's given me opportunities, to also speak at some of the conferences and network in ways that I never would have otherwise. And what's great, I think, is the local and the regional groups. You're coming together with people who are close by, so you can start to connect with them outside of just the planned events, which is really nice.
Yeah. Whereas if you're at worldwide ERC and you have a great chat with someone, chances are they live hundreds of miles away from you, so if not thousands in some instances, so it can be challenging from that instance. And tell us about some of you mentioned they want to have more corporate members on the board. Tell us about some of the benefits you've seen from interacting with other non-corporate, like just random partners or suppliers in the industry, because I feel like a lot of corporate leaders almost don't want to chat to suppliers at times because they're just going to get sold to, or whatever. But I know you have a very sort of positive perspective on this, so tell us a little bit about some of the benefits you've seen from interacting.
Yeah, I think it's a very common thing to be not wanting to engage in some of these events because of that fear of being sold to or pitched to. And I have experienced that at different times, but much more significantly, I've built so many relationships with people in all areas of the business. And so not only has it helped me to learn and just to understand so many of the different facets of mobility, but I have built relationships with so many people. Some of them I've been able to work with, but many of them I haven't. And what I love is it's not, it's not a transactional thing. They're not only getting to know me because they can potentially get business from me, but they've shared knowledge, they've shared experiences, they've connected me with other people who maybe are going through similar things. I've been able to then refer them to other people who may have a need for their services. And so I think it's really just created this amazing dynamic of really getting to know people, getting to know who the experts are, who the resources are, so that when you do have a need, you know where to go, you know who to refer them to. And then one thing for me that it's created additional opportunities, and the FEM speaking event was actually as a result of me building a relationship with someone who I don't work with for my day job. We don't have, anything where we're working together, but we met for coffee. We were talking about yoga and mobility, and he came up with the idea to dive into it deeper. And so that never would have happened had I not taken the time to meet with him and just have a great conversation. And, I think the majority of the conversations that I have when I meet with a lot of people are probably 75% personal and just getting to know people. And it's just such a great way to build relationships. And, sometimes things come of them and sometimes they don't. But I think at the end of the day, that relationship is really beneficial.
Yeah. And I think it's, as you say, it's, a lot of the time, there's just really fun, interesting people in our industry. So it's sort of, it's one of the things I like the most is you're unlikely to find a dull person in the industry, which is very nice. And B, as you say, like the personal conversation, but even just it's so interesting learning about all the crazy different facets of our industry, whether that's the company that someone's worked for, the particular aspect of mobility. I'm constantly learning about different aspects or different areas or different pieces of the pie, and it's just so fun. Chatting to people, and as you say, you never know what's going to come of these things. So it sounds like it's been very beneficial for you, and sort of you definitely don't come across as shy and anymore, Krista. So well done for being walked out of your comfort zone. Walked out of your comfort zone there. I know you sort of touched on this a little bit already, but I know you've been involved in some more formal mentoring programs within the relocation space. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so in the last year and a half, I've gotten more involved both with internal mentoring programs as well as external. And so the internal mentoring program that I'm part of, I'm the mentee. And so I'm working with someone who's been with the company for longer. She's in a different function, which is nice. And so it's really been helpful for me to help navigate a little bit of the culture at the company, and also just navigate some professional challenges, learn about ways that I can adapt my style to match more with the industry, because working in technology is very different than the previous industries I was in. And so that's been a really good opportunity for me to grow as my own professional. And then I was presented with the opportunity to become a mentor for a specific mobility mentoring program that started in the last, I think it's been about 6 months. So I've been partnered with someone who's more junior, who her day job is not completely mobility. She does a couple of different things. And so it's not a full-time thing that she does, but she also doesn't have a lot of experience in it. And so we meet monthly and we have really great discussions, and she's been able to learn a lot, throw around ideas, tell me about situations that she's dealing with so I can give her different bits of advice. And so it's been a really awesome dynamic to learn from each other, talk about different situations, and kind of give back again to the social impact thing. I think sometimes people get caught up in like, what's in it for me? What do I need to do? How am I growing? And it's really rewarding to kind of shift and try to give back to others and to share the experiences and just do something from a little bit of a different perspective.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's I feel like a lot of people in our space are nervous and have a bit of imposter syndrome about mentoring people, but actually it's people learn so much, and it's amazing how grateful people are sort of earlier in their career for sharing that advice. So that's so noble that you do that. So well done. And do keep up the good work there. You touched on something there I just had to go to, which is you started your career in sort of more traditional mobility. You went on assignment to Iraq, much more traditional assignment based. Now you're in tech, very, very different styles of relocation, etc. Sum up, this is off piece, but sum up just some of like for people that have either done one or the other and maybe can't contrast it. Like some of the major differences of working for mobility at a tech company versus in a more traditional mobility environment.
Yeah, I think the biggest difference that I've seen is just around the drivers for mobility. I think in engineering, project-based engineering is extremely cost-focused. And so there's a lot of pressure to maintain a program that is very structured, that is very traditional, and that is very predictable when it comes to cost.
Yeah.
I think the focus when you look at tech is much more around the experience and the individual. And so it's taking that shift from the business to the person. And so that's been something I think for me that has been the biggest difference. And taking off that lens of, obviously we all focus on cost. That's never going to go away, but it's not necessarily the number one driving factor of the program. And so it's been refreshing. And I think part of the reason that I did decide to leave the engineering world and shift was to have a refreshed perspective, to get out a little bit of the traditional and be a little more innovative and come up with new ideas, because we all know that the industry is changing and that the way we're managing assignments and relocations is changing. And I felt like in a very traditional program, I didn't have the ability to influence change in that way. And so my, a big driver of leaving and moving into a different industry was to be able to have more of an impact and to have more of an influence on that employee experience and on the development of a program where it can be more innovative and it can align more with the way that the mobility industry is headed.
Yeah. And it's very, very different from project-based mobility is challenging for that point of view. Particularly often the mobility sort of costs can come in at the end, and it's like, and then it's just, well, we budgeted for and this just comes out of the budget. So, it's very, very challenging. That's always, but from our side, always a nerve-wracking one whenever it's like, maybe it's a bit late. If they've already costed the project off, it's going to be a tough sell at that point, right? And to get anything there, it does eat it. It is amazing to see sort of how much variety there is in the mobility space. So, thank you for sharing those thoughts. The completely different topic now, but as you know, we always end the show with a question from a previous guest, and this is I think you'll find this interesting, and I'm wondering whether I would guess what you would say. But the question from our previous guest this week is: if you were to be in any other industry than mobility, where would you be and why?
I think for me, I would be related to travel. So for me, I think, traveling is a big part of what I love, which I think ties into mobility. So I think if the industry would have something to do with being able to travel. So for me, like my ideal job would be like a travel photographer, going around the world, photographing amazing places, amazing people, and just really immersing myself in different cultures and different experiences. So I think it does tie to mobility. Because it's related to what we do, which I think is why I love it so much and I'm so passionate about it. But the traveling piece for me is just something that I would love more of. I don't have the opportunity to as much as I would love to, but do it when I can. I
think being a travel photographer would be pretty cool. Whenever you see like a nice photo book with travel photos that you just think, wow, this person has been to so many amazing places and captured them amazing. That's it. What an incredible answer. I think you'd have a few people biting your hand off if they were offered that. And it's sort of, it can be tough in mobility sometimes, can't it? When you're busy moving people to all these different places around the world, and you're like, "Hey, okay, move here, there, and everywhere." So it can be quite envy-inducing, can't it? But
great. But I also think, definitely that. But I also think like I've always tried to live through their shoes and kind of experience the things that they experience through their experiences and get people to share and kind of, live vicariously through someone else's experience. Try to create the best outcomes for them. And so I think that that's like a way to be involved, even if you're not actually getting to do it. And so, and I'm meeting people from so many different countries. It's just been such like a cultural immersion I never expected to have. And it's been one of my favorite parts of mobility is just like meeting people from all over the world.
It's such a cool industry from that point of view. It's just literally everywhere, right? And there's always some partner or client or person relocating, and it sort of shows you as well how the world is small in some ways. There's so many people who are a lot closer to one another than people sometimes think. So very, 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 very cool. Well, Krista, this has been such a pleasure. I'm so pleased that you were able to make the time and come on. And it's so amazing to see sort of you continue to blossom into the sort of industry leader that you've become, and share so many personal thoughts for people in the space today. I can't wait to hear their reaction, but I know they'll enjoy it, because there's one thing for sure I know is people in our industry need some mindfulness, because it's a stressful time, as you say, very under-resourced team. So thank you so much for taking the time to drop some wisdom and being so open with your thoughts. And yeah, I have to have you onto the pod again very, very soon. But thanks very much for coming on.
Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Cheers, Krista. Bye-bye.